right, good morning, everyone. My name is Josh Lemaster, and I'm one of the applications guys on the team for CAD-CAM Consulting, as well as I do some training and see some familiar faces in here, so it's good to see some of you. And if you don't like the training, talk to my boss over here. That's up to him. So I'm going to be going over some enhancements in the milling side of the software here. So as you can see there, we have priority, safety, motion, and void support for solid holes. And then we're going to go over controlling flat area machining with critical depths. And then they added some color selection in the other 2D milling toolpaths that just hasn't existed in the previous versions of Mastercam. So I'm going to jump. I have some PowerPoints here, but mostly what I'm going to do is in the software, so I'll kind of show this here. I'm actually going to show the void support here first. So there's a new checkbox basically in 2026 that is off by default, and you can now have a hole that's on like a collinear plane where the two holes are aligned. Before in Mastercam, you had to basically, if you wanted to say spot drill it or you wanted to chamfer it or something, you would have to create two separate toolpaths basically, because it would recognize the hole all the way through both sides of the void and everything. Well, in 26 now you can select them separately, which is really neat, and then you can do it in one toolpath basically, right? Just select two holes on a collinear plane. So I'm going to show that here, and then I will also in the same file as well show this priority, safety, motion, which is cool. So let me go over to Mastercam here and see if I can find my files. Let's see here. I need Sean's reading glasses. I guess we're all getting old, huh? This one. All right, so like I mentioned, in Mastercam 2025 and previous versions, whenever you had a hole like this on the same plane, then you would get one toolpath and you wouldn't have the ability to chamfer both sides. So I'll show that here a little bit, and let me move the prompt out of the way here, hide that. So I have, this is your selection, right, your geometry selection or your solid hole selection in Mastercam. Everybody should be familiar with that. In the advanced tab now, under the 5-axis drilling, and I'll show that too, you have this include void. So that is checked. So this is basically how Mastercam used to be. So I'm going to show you, right? And you would come in and select, for instance, let me delete this here and go in and select here. So you can see it's automatically grabbing this other hole and reading it, right? So if I click over here, I cannot get a separate arrow, right, on the solid hole. I'm limited. I would have to create another toolpath to, like I mentioned, to spot drill that, to chamfer that, etc. So now in Mastercam 2026, this is off by default, the include voids. So when I come over to selection, now when I click on the solid hole, I can also select the other one over here, make sure my arrows are going in the correct direction, green check, and I'm going to jump into the parameters here, guys. So you need to be on, obviously, 5-axis output, right, for your tool axis control. And, you know, set the other parameters, a safety zone, all that good stuff, right? We'll take a look here just for time's sake. I'm going to green check. And you can see now we can do it in one toolpath like I mentioned, whereas before this would have to be two separate toolpaths, okay? So just a nice little enhancement there. in Mastercam. Hopefully it makes your life easier, right? That's the goal. You know, one little step at a time over a lot of tool paths, a lot of years. It's big improvements, right? So that's one really cool thing. Again, that's off by default, okay? So that is in the geometry selection under the advanced tab. If you're used to the way 25 worked and you're like, I need that hole to go all the way through, then you can go back to that. But, you know, now you have this option, which is, I think it's really cool and helpful for operations like this. All right, and then I'm also going to show in the same file here, under safety zone. So again, we're still in 5-axis mode for output, right? Under our safety zone here, they added a priority motion option for your retract length, right? So you have 3 new options now. You have minimized length, which is shortest distance, right? Then you have minimize angle, which is basically try and get it in the least amount of motion on the axes, on the rotaries, right? That you can so you can minimize that, right? So if I do, I'm going to show this here. If I do minimize length, you'll see here that I'm going to get motion like this, right? So I'm going to green check here. And I have basically like the shortest distance, if you would, right? If I go in and I say, no, I want to do a minimize angle right here, it gives me, like I mentioned, the shortest, the least amount of rotary motion that it needs, right? It's trying to limit and do less of that, be direct that way. And then you also have this balanced as well, and that's just trying to do a combination of both. Okay, so you can select one or the other, and then the balance is kind of trying to balance both of them as best it can. In this case, it's we can try it. I think it's not going to do much besides one of them. Yeah, so it's just picking the minimum angle, I believe. Minimize angle, yeah. So, anyways, if you have kind of a motion that you're trying to go around on your clearance there for multi-axis like drilling or different things, right? It just could be kind of helpful to, if you don't want your rotaries spinning around a lot, maybe you have the option to minimize angle and minimize distance, right? Think of it like a aircraft flying around. Like if you fly to Asia, you fly over Alaska, right? Shortest distance kind of thing. It's that same concept, right? So I know this part's it kind of shows it with the sphere nicely, I believe. It's not overly complex, so you can see, like I mentioned, I'd like to think of it like a plane flight, right? You're flying across the globe, shortest distance, etc. Minimize angle, minimize length, right? So that's those are some neat new enhancements for that. I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint here, and they also included, so a new thing is critical depths in OptiRough, right? So let me jump into Mastercam to show this. Let me pull up a file here. See how fast this computer is, huh? Yeah, we're going to metric units. Cool. So in OptiRough here, under our cut parameters, we have a new critical depths option in Mastercam 2026, okay? So keep in mind, this is for step downs. We still have the ability to do step ups. Nothing has changed. It's been we've added functionality, right? Mastercam's added functionality, which is cool. So in a case like this, right, you have a feature, you have flats here, right? And you could use step ups. That'd be one way of doing it. But if you're kind of stepping down like this, maybe you want it to grab some of these floors, right? And get some critical depths. So you can do it 2 ways now. the critical depths here, you can include flats, so it'll kind of manually just detect them and pick them up, right? Which is really cool. Or you can select them manually. So if you're like, oh no, I really want to force a depth cut to this level, it's really cool. Now you can force it to that depth and it'll go around and machine everything at that depth, which is, again, maybe you only need it for certain applications, but it's more power, more functionality, and makes you a better programmer in that instance that you need it. So if I hit include flats right here, I'm going to show you what it does. So you could see when I kind of tipped it to the front view there, it wasn't getting the bottom floors. And we'll regenerate this here. So this could be helpful too if you're close, like if you're cutting, say, 100% of your tool diameter, 150% of your tool diameter, right? And you're really close to that floor, maybe you want to grab, that critical depth, or maybe it's a little bit above or something. It's just really helpful to grab it with the critical depths. And you can see now I'm getting the flats, right? Now, if you notice, it did add a tool path, but I am getting those critical depths that I want, okay? So again, just a nice enhancement that'll hopefully make your life easier. And the last thing I'm going to show here is in Contour, they have, let me go to, I'm in the wrong plane. Hang on one second. I'm in the wrong, let me flip this to top here. Isometric. So I go back to Contour here. I'm going to grab just a feature here, just to show this. And you're probably familiar with it, I'm sure, in other toolpaths. You have the dynamic motion. They have the color selection for chaining geometry, right? So they just added this in the Contour toolpath, and I believe a few others as well. It was in the dynamic toolpaths, and I believe like Peel Mill and those, right? So they just added it in Contour. It's a nice little addition, right? It's helpful because now you can see, okay, I chain my geometry, it's green. And again, you can change these colors if you don't like the color and you're like, it's hard for me to see, you can change. But it's just easier to see now, right? It's easier to see, okay? Green chain, avoidance model, etc. Right? In Contour, it's pretty straightforward because we're not doing a lot of usually avoidance stuff and different things. But in dynamic, I'm sure have used it and it's been pretty helpful. So just a nice little additional enhancement there.